And now, it's time for another Dice Tower review with the Game Boy Geek.
Hello my friends, it's the Game Boy Geek here. Today we're going to be going into a steampunk setting, and we're trying to use our light deductive skills to find out who the Chosen One is. This Chosen One, we're going to have to direct to the Organ of Eternity and supply that person with 15 pages of sheet music so that they can play the lovely sound that will fight off the Armageddon type of event. Whew. And it uses deduction and auctioning turn order and gears on a board. A lot of interesting things here. We're looking at 011 because you have to do this within the 11th hour from Elfenworks Games. Some interesting mix of mechanics in this game. It's very unique. Let's check it out. I'll show you all the bits and pieces, how it's played, and then I'll give you my final thoughts. Well, here's 011 set up. As you can see, the board has some very interesting things to look at. We have a city map here with some different miniatures around, different characters you'll be moving. We have over here where the organ is, where we'll be finding out what location those are. We have some really cool gears that move different things around during the game. We have a big clock that runs timeout towards the end of the game. We have a music track here. We have a bid order track, and we have how much time we have left in the game. A lot going on. Let's jump into how it's played. At the beginning of the game, you'll find out which one of these 8 characters you are in the game. And during the game, you're trying to figure out which one of these 8 is the Chosen One. So for example, from these 8 different characters, I may have been given this card here, and I know which person I am. Everybody else is also given one of these cards. One of these cards is placed under the board. That is the Chosen One that we're all trying to figure out. And if there's any leftover cards, they're put in a pile that everybody can investigate later as well. So each of us is somebody. We're trying to figure out who the Chosen One is. You're also trying to figure out where the Organ of Eternity is. As the game goes on, it'll get narrowed down where the organ is. It's different every game. And it'll end up in some spot, and you have to get the Chosen One, who you're trying to deduce who it is, to this organ spot of Organ of Eternity, and allow them to play the music that will stop the Armageddon that's called Ragnarok here in this game. So in addition to finding who the Chosen One is, and finding out where the organ is, and getting that person to where the organ is, you also have to get the up to 15 pages of music that they understand how to play. You have to do all this in less than 11 turns, because once the 11th hour is over, hence the game name 011, if it gets to 12 and you haven't figured it out, you lose. So you're trying to figure it out within a few 11 turns. And each person only has a certain amount of time spaces or time actions to get things done, 45 to start with. If you ever run out of time, you're doomed. The game's played over 5 phases. The first one we do in a reveal event. I'll show you that later because it won't make much sense what those do until later. And then we'll go on to bidding for a turn. Turn order is random at the beginning of the game, but after that, you get to bid. The first person highest gets to bid whether he wants to be first, second, third, or fourth in this case. And he bids with how many time units he wants to use. Again, you start the game with 45 time units, and the currency you're bidding with is time units. So if you want to bid 3, you're essentially bidding 3 units of time. Now there's some advantages and disadvantages to going first. There's some advantages and disadvantages to going last. And the second and third kind of, hey, you know, it's take some, leave some. So when you bid, essentially, let's say this guy bid for second place, and then it would go red, green, and yellow. If any of these people bid, it would keep bidding until everybody else passed except the highest bidder. Let's say he ended up with the highest bid, he's second. Next, red would bid. Maybe they bid for first, but maybe green outbid them and then everybody else passed. Red would then try to bid again. Let's say he wanted to go last, and yellow passed, and then yellow would go there. So that's how the bidding works, and this is going to be turn order for the rest of this round. Then we're going to go to the next phase, which is placing clues on the map. And notice it says the first player skips this phase. I told you there were some negatives about going first. This is it. You can't place clues on the map. So everybody else except first player gets 1 clue to place on the map. It has to go in an empty spot. It can't go in one of these special spots. It has to go in an empty map spot where there's nobody. What these clues do essentially is give you sort of an extra turn, if you will. We'll get into the details of what these do a little bit later, but they're good to have, and it's good to strategically place them near a character that you might be able to move and pick up those clue tokens. Now we go into the main phase of the round, which is for taking character action. So in the action selection, it's sort of a role selection mechanic, where the person, starting with the first turn order and working its way down, they get to take their pawn and select who they are this round. So you're not any one of these characters. Over the different rounds, you can be different ones and moving them around the board. So let's say he selects this guy here. He would immediately get to take, on his turn, he'd get to get +2 music. Now remember, you need 15 sheets of music by default to get towards one of the end game goals. This lady here allows you to get 2 of these research tiles. Research tiles do some different things during the game. You could play one of these per turn during this phase, and they do certain things like this would help you locate the organ, which I'll show you in a later stage. This can allow you to swap players on the board. You know, this would cost you 2 time, but you get 4 sheets of music done. And this would give you, hey, 2 sheets of music. So they do all sorts of different things. There's many different ones. That's just a few of them. This person, you lose 2 time, but you get to use anybody's special ability. This guy gains you 3 time. This guy allows you to do 2 investigations. We'll talk about what those are in detail later. This guy lets you do any one of these. Place a clue, get a clue marker, get 1 music, pick up a research tile, or investigate. This person allows you to put a clue token on any of the rounded sort of mystic cities on the board, and this guy lets you move 3 extra spaces. So let's say he selected this guy here. He immediately gets to take his action, and in this case, we'd take his green pawn and move it up to 2 music on the music track here. Then we get to do the coolest part of the game, which is moving these gears. This is adjusting the gears and then moving our character. Now, this gear always moves, and you can move it 1, 2, or 3 times in your turn. For each one that you move your time. You've spent 1 unit of time. So if I move this 1, 2, and I'm green, I've now spent 2 time, and I have to lose 2 time. Now what it does is, now we look at what this is pointing to. The next thing we do is we move. So this one is pointing to an action. We'll get to that later. This one is pointing 5. And this is pointing to a blue sort of a Zeppelin place. Now, the first thing you do after you move the gears is you have the option of moving. You can move the character that you took for this round up to 5 spots, knowing that every spot you take, you move 1 unit of time. So this is the character that green selected. He can move up to 5, so and you can't go diagonal, just up, down, left, right. He could go 1, 2, 3, 4, get the extra clue token, and he would have spent 4 time doing that. Or he could spend nothing, and you can choose not to move. Now during the movement, you can see that there's 3 different colors here. Normally we have the blue, the yellow, and the green. Those are 3 different sort of transportation options on the board. This one is sort of the blue Zeppelin. Now let's just say this was him for that round, even though he wasn't. He could go 1 into this blue train, and then anywhere on the board where there's another one of these blue Zeppelins, he could show up there. So he goes 1, and he could pick any of those blue spots as sort of a transportation, and then he can move from there, 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever. So those transportation icons allow you to move from different spots on the board, whatever color is showing on that gear wheel. And then we have the action, which is, in this case, this action was 1 investigation. And it's cool, interesting how the different actions and the different times and the different types of movement all sort of change as you change the wheels. Now, as I showed you, everyone at the beginning of the game is dealt 1 of these cards, and that's who they are. They keep that secret. Everyone else is dealt 4 of the same cards as well. These are called power cards. And at any time during this phase where you're moving and such, you can use one of these cards, but if so, it discards out of the game forever. It's sort of a one-time use. And everyone has these same 4 cards. This allows me to use any one of those transportation methods that I talked to you about just briefly ago. This gets you 3 of those research tiles that we talked about earlier. This gets you 3 investigations, which we're about to talk about. And this gets you 3 sheets of music. Now, investigations. Everyone has 1 character card and these 4 power cards to start the game. They're kept secret. You can choose, in this case, we got to choose 1 investigation where we would choose a player. They would hold their cards, sort of fan them out where we can't see them, and we get to pull one of these cards. 1 for each investigation we have. Now, if we pull one of their power cards, we kind of missed. But what we're trying to do is pull, luckily, their card so that we know who they are, so that we can mark it down on a piece of paper and know that this person is not the chosen one under the board because there's only 1 of those. Now you might be wondering, what are these clue tokens? These clue tokens give you sort of an extra turn. So if you're investigating, I could have spent a clue token, and instead of pulling 1 card randomly from that person, I could have pulled 2. Again, there's some of those research tiles as well that have investigation tokens. We told you about some of these research tokens. Some of these have investigations on them as well. And so instead of just investigating 1 like the wheel told us, we could have used a clue token, we could have used a research tile, and we could have investigated 3 of his 5 cards. So there's a good chance of trying to get those. If it's getting towards the end of the game and you have a lot of extra research tokens and a lot of clue tokens, you could literally empty out people's hands. And as the game gets on, it gets a little easier because people start using some of these power cards. And when you use them, let's say I've used 2 of them over the game to go somewhere, then I'm only left with 3 cards left. When someone investigates my hand, they have a 1 in 3 chance now of getting who I am. So the game of deduction, it's very light deduction, but it's interesting how it plays out as it's a little harder at the beginning, a little easier at the end. So each character in order would take their action. And then only the last player, and I told you there was some benefits about being last, only the last player can play a location tile. Now we see different locations on the board, these circular locations. These are what some of the location tiles look like. When I have a location tile, this one for example is this city. It has the name and the color and the symbol of that on it. So what do we do with it? So we place a location tile in one of these 4 spots. If I place it here, it means the organ has to be north or above on the board this city. If I put it on the west, the organ has to be to the right of this city, and so on and so forth. So as the game goes on, and every time you play this game, the organ will be in a different spot, and over time you'll start to learn what parts of the board they are in. So if we said that it had to be east or to the right of this, then we know it's already narrowed down to this small area. But if we said to the west, then we know that it's just almost the whole board still, just this part's cut off. If we said it was to the bottom of this, then you know, boom. So as you're going on and more location tiles are being played, you're narrowing down where that organ is going to show up until that 4th one is there, and then it shows up. And anytime you play a location tile, you get awarded with 2 extra time and 1 clue token for helping share the information with other people. And if you place the 4th one, you get 3 extra time for placing the organ of eternity where it is. After everyone's taken an action, it's the end of the round, we go to hour number 2. Remember, what we're trying to do is find the chosen one, get them to the organ, and have 15 sheets of music by the time we get to the end of the 11th hour, hence 011. Now, at the end of the 4th, and we go to the 5th, you'll see this little wolf or Fenrir character here. An interesting thing happens now. You see this has the logo of the clock showing that hour. Everyone will get one of these cards and secretly will look at it. Most of them look just like this, and that just basically means you're still who you say you are, you're a good guy, and your victory condition doesn't change. If you pull this card, you have been incarnated into Fenrir, the wolf, and you are secretly have a different end game result. So these rounds go on until either the good guys or the Fenrir finishes the game. Now we see the music, 15 sheets of music for a normal person. If you're Fenrir, you only need 12. But you also need to have research tiles showing 2 emblems of the wolf. So this one would do it by itself, or you might need 2 different ones that have 1. You need at least 2 symbols of that and have 12 sheets of music. And let's say this was you. This was the character you were dealt, and through deduction you found out that this was the character who was the chosen one under the board, that everyone else is trying to get this person to the organ. If you were Fenrir and you had 2 of those Fenrir icons, you could move this guy here and you would end the game and win. Everybody else has a slightly different agenda. Everyone else needs 15 pages of music. They need to find out who the chosen one is, and let's just say after deduction we figured out that this is the person. They would then need to move this person to the organ of eternity, have 15 pages of music, and not have run out of time or hours by that time, and then that person would win. All right, well there's 011. Well, this game was very interesting to me because it has that deductive element, and I usually love that in games. But this game sort of surprised me because of how it fit so many different mechanics together with a pretty good experience. I'd say it's a good game overall. You've got deduction. You've got the coolest thing, which is trying to figure out how those gears are going to work and how you move it. You're managing your own time, how much time you have left, so you can do more actions than other people very quickly, but it's going to cost you towards the end because you only have a certain amount and everybody has the same finite amount. And then you have the action roll selection where you're trying to figure out, well, which guy should I use? Should I use him because of where he is on the board? Or should I use him because of the power that I need that round? Auction order. Do I really need to be first to get the character that I really need to use his power this round, but I don't get to place any clue tokens? Or do I want to be somewhere in the middle? Or do I want to really auction to try to be last so I can place the location or the location of where that organ is and get the extra abilities there too. So there's a lot to think about. There's a lot to do. It's not a heavy game, but it's not a very light game either. I'd say it's probably pretty medium. It plays better with more people, but not the most. I'd say the sweet spot is like 4 or 5. 3 is a little too little because everybody gets 2 characters and it's not as fun being able to pull like 1 or 2 characters. And the Fenrir event at the 5th hour doesn't happen with 3 players. So I like it with 4 and 5. More than that, it plays to 6. It gets a little long. There's a little bit more of a downtime that I would like, but if you're playing at 4 or 5 and you're looking for a game that has an interesting mix of mechanics with an interesting, unique theme, and if you like gears on a board, you might want to check out 011 from Elfenworks. Hey, one more thing before you go. If you're about to drop a comment on this YouTube page for this video and you're expecting interaction or a personal response from me, I recommend the place to do that is at my Facebook page, which is facebook.com/thegameboygeek, because I don't get notified when YouTube videos get comments on the Dice Tower Network because I don't own the channel. So if you want to interact with me directly, I'll see you at my Facebook page.
Thanks so much for watching the Dice Tower videos. Find more great videos and reviews as well as our top-rated audio podcast at Dicetower.com. You can also find other great shows at Dicetowernetwork.com. I'm Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower. The Dice Tower is sponsored by Cool Stuff Inc., where you can find great games for great prices. Cool stuff in stock. Check them out at CoolStuffInc.com.